So then you were in the family cabin for a year. What about life in that cabin made you think, hey, let's stay here for a permanent time?
Well, the first thing is obviously that the societal expectations weren't there anymore. With not too many neighbors, you don't have to deal with that pretty much. And the family cabin is also situated right at the foot of the mountains/hills of the area. So you basically go out of the door and are in nature. You can just go with the dog for hours and hours without meeting people. You can go from fishing lake to fishing lake, get your own food, which is a big plus for me too. And in general, in Norway, there's a very high focus on outdoor life. You grew up in Scotland, you said. You may know that because I heard that it might be the only country that's comparable to the focus on the outdoor life. And that's something I never realized because growing up in northern Germany and generally in Germany, people aren't particularly nature people. And coming here, noticing that literally everybody either does or knows somebody that does fish and go hunt and pick berries. That's something terrific, I thought. And then obviously also the option to buy land here was a big contrast to other countries.
Are you an introverted person? Because a lot of people, the life that you laid out just there, a lot of people would struggle with the lack of connection to people, but you seem to thrive under that.
It's hard to differentiate, I think. I don't know the exact definition of what being an introvert is. And I'm not sure if it exists either. It's just more of a distinction, I assume. But in general, all my life I was very happy in my own company and also together with animals. It doesn't mean that I am feeling miserable when I'm with people. And I do enjoy it. I don't have any issues being social. And I'm also not the guy that would sit in the corner in a conversation, in a group conversation. So I don't know if I'm particularly introvert, but if I would split my time, I prefer to be alone maybe 90% of the time and then have 10% of actual communication with people. That is a bit more meaningful than the everyday conversation that you would have at an office. So I don't know. I couldn't say. I neither am full-on introvert or extrovert either. I mean, making YouTube videos, I don't know if you can still call yourself an introvert if you're sharing your life on a social media platform. It's hard to say.
That's a good point, to be fair. Yeah. I think the definition would be, well, certainly anything that I've read, is if you're introverted, you restore yourself through time alone, whereas if you're extroverted, you restore yourself through time with other people.
Okay, well, if it doesn't exclude the joy of being with people, then I would consider myself introvert, yes.
So you've now spent a year in Norway. You decide you want to stay there. What's the process like behind buying a farm? Because in Scotland, for example, if you buy a farm, you're talking millions because it's a whole business you're buying. You're not just buying the land; you're buying the crops that come with it, or the animals, etc. What's it like in Norway?
It is fairly different. In general, if you want to buy land here, you do need to have your citizen number, which includes full migration. So you either have to be employed here to prove that migration is valid, or, well, the regulations changed a little, but back then, when we came here, I had to prove having financials to live on for at least 24 months. So I kind of...
Is that 24 months worth to live on in the bank?
Yes.
Just in cash? So that's quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I didn't have it, but kind of got around it with help from my parents. So you needed to prove that you have the amount of cash for the 24 months and that you do have existing potential work relationships in the country and have an address that you're living on right now. So you had to either rent or own anything already. So these were the three main things for me, I think. Having a Norwegian girlfriend that I wasn't married to wasn't a help in that process.
And the farm that you chose to buy, tell us a bit about it. How big is it? What do you do you grow anything on the farm? I imagine it's quite difficult to grow things just in Norwegian winter.
Yeah, it's not too far off from the Scottish winter, I assume, at least at the height that we are at. But I think I didn't answer fully on the question before. In general, the farms here are often split up from the land that they once had. So in the early days, there were a lot of farms with about, let's say, 20 hectares. That was a pretty rough number, I would say. That was popular, which would include a bit of forest, grazing grounds, and growing space. But over the years, as in any other country, it centralized much more. So the farms that did continue farming bought up the land of the other farms around them, which then split the properties into smaller properties, and the majority went to one farmer. So there are very, very few existing large farms that actually produce milk and groceries here. These ones you don't necessarily want to buy if you are on the lookout for a budget-friendly solution, because you're speaking millions of dollars as in any other country. But there are loads and loads of farms that are having still these either 20 acres connected or a little less than that. And they do sell somewhere in between, depending on the condition of the buildings, in between 100,000 euros to 350,000, 400,000 euros. So not far off from a flat in any bigger city. And that's what we went for. We now have a farm which was sadly split up from it's not the original size anymore. It was 25 hectares, and now we have 2 hectares of land.
So we would call that in Scotland a small holding.
Yeah, it would be a small holding.
Yeah. No, I think small holding. So a lot of people, well, especially in Britain, small holdings very romanticized because it's very self-sufficient. I guess it's what you're putting out there. But what are the downsides of small holding farming living that you have? Everyone sees the upsides of time in nature, time with the animals. So what are the downsides that no one else sees?
Well, in this country particularly, the downside is, well, we don't have animals, obviously. This farm wasn't used for 30 years. So we took over a small holding which hasn't been running for a very long time. So there's, number one is restoration, and number 2 is building. And these small holdings have one particular disadvantage in Norway if they do not run agriculture. Then you do need to apply for buildings and changes of the buildings like you would do for a regular house. And that's always a load of bureaucracy. And then, well, so it's number one, if it's not running on an agricultural business, it's a lot of applications that you have to go through. They cost a lot of money. And number 2 disadvantage of having a small holding is that it normally comes with buildings that need to be restored or at least maintained. And in Norway, maintenance, like any building material, is astronomically expensive. So it's just a huge commitment financially if you want to maintain things. Well, I would say these are the two main downsides of having a small holding. Otherwise, I don't see any, especially as we are close or in the proximity of the 300,000 people city, within 30 minutes of taking a speedboat over the fjord. So I don't see any disadvantage, as people generally commute longer distances within the city than we would do to the city.
Is your commute to the city on a speedboat? That's so cool.
Yeah, it is on a speedboat, and it's not mine because I don't go to the cities, but my girlfriend does. So she works in the city, and then we would take about a 7-minute drive down to the terminal, down to the harbor, and then she would take the speedboat over into the city.
That's so cool. What happens in the winter though when it freezes? Can you?
Fjords don't freeze.
Oh, I guess because
Too much current, too much salt.
Yeah. Wow, that is a cool commute. I guess do you just hang about on the farm doing bits? What's your sort of daily routine when she's out working?
Well, right now, winter is a bit more tricky. In the summer, I've been pretty much spending all my time outside, building the greenhouse, fixing stuff on the barn, getting in the window, growing crops, all that kind of stuff. Right now, it is a bit more interior work in the barn, and also the money aspect. Obviously, social media doesn't make me anything. I do have a YouTube channel that generates maybe $350 annually. So having some stock footage revenue, Instagram doesn't make anything. So social media doesn't help. So there needs to be another source of revenue. And I got a governmental grant to build a company focusing on providing nature experiences / services. So we're building right now courses in log cabin building, regenerative agriculture, and foraging. So that's kind of like maybe 2 days a week, focusing on building that company. Then 3 days a week might be editing social media stuff. And right now, 2 days a week is just labor on the farm. So we took down some silos that were impregnated with creosote. So it's like a kind of cancerous substance. So it's just getting this out of the farm and then fixing the gaps that you create by taking out such massive silos. So it's just carpentry in winter, carpentry, social media, and building the company.